Good evening, everyone. I am Andrea Bond Johnson, and I am so happy you are able to be with us this evening. We all have been affected by COVID 19. We are so glad that we were able to get all of our superintendents to join us today because this pandemic disrupted our lives in ways that none of us could ever have imagined. The unemployment rate increased tremendously. The healthcare systems were in a panic, not expecting such a wave of sickness. And some of our businesses had to close unless you were an essential business. But most importantly, our schools, our students, our teachers, and our parents, they had to move expeditiously to make adjustments to what this has caused, this pandemic. So this evening, we are so happy to have with us the directors of school from Crockett County, Hayward County, and Lauderdale County. We're going to have with us Philip Pratt, Joey Hassel from Hayward County, and Sean Kimball. Good evening, guys.
Good evening.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Good
Okay,
evening.
great. All righty. Well, listen, we're going to get started. Good. Let's get started with you, Ms. Pratt. What will the schools look like in the fall? Everybody is wondering what to expect. What is your vision for the schools this fall?
Well, prayerfully, we hope we get to resume school the normal way with everybody in attendance. But I think everyone's working together with the state superintendents to find a way to have a contingency plan to fulfill the needs of the kids one way or the other, whether it's 100% in school or it's virtually. We have different scenarios now we're working on. One scenario is everyone physically in the building. Another is most students in the physical building, with a few of our high-risk students receiving virtual services. And another is a hybrid type day where whether we go 2 days, 3 days, and then alternate where the other 2 or 3 are virtual. And then the final one is with all students virtual. So I think we're all looking at those scenarios, and I think we're still in a waiting game to have a little guidance about will the days be counted, how many days will be counted, will they be held against us for kids not being in the seats. All those things are going to be play a big part in what the schools decide to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anyone else want to elaborate on that? Joey, Sean?
Well, I think Mr. Pratt nailed it there. I mean, we're having to plan for scenarios and situations that we're not sure of at this point. And I'd just like to for everyone to understand and know that we need some understanding at this time as far as realizing that whatever schools look like in the fall, we're going to do that in a way that is cautious and try to exercise as much caution and realize that student safety and employee safety and really the well-being of our community is at stake. So just having a whole lot of understanding and being patient with schools as we all try to come up with a plan that works best for us.
Okay, yeah. Joey, you want to say anything to that? Joey? Okay, I'll come back to Joey. So listen, let's talk about sports, okay? So how do you envision football in the fall or basketball? What do you think is going to happen with our sports and our fans? Fans want to know what's going to happen.
Well, I'll jump in there.
Folks, I'm having trouble with
technological difficulties here.
Yeah.
Well, I think we have just. I think most school districts across the state, and I know here in West Tennessee, because we've been collaborating with a lot of the area superintendents, have been working through a phase one opening of athletics and following the governor's executive order in terms of no contact sports, but allowing students, we know it's important when it's important to our community, but it's important to our kids too, to get out and do something. And so, I think most districts have opened up in a limited capacity to allow students to get out and to exercise and to be involved. And we have some pretty strict guidelines right now in phase 1. We hope we get to a point and get some guidance that we can release some of those restrictions based on the number of active cases we see in our community. But we were hoping to hear from the TSSAA today on one of the meetings that superintendents called into, and we had some technical problems with that call too. And so we didn't get to hear from directly from the TSSAA, but we know some additional guidance will be coming soon. But it's certainly our goal to get students involved and to be able to have some type of normalcy in our sports programs for the fall and winter. But again, we're at the mercy of what transpires between now and then.
Okay. So kind of just share with me what your thoughts are as far as the impact that COVID had on academic achievement. Joey hasn't come back yet, so either one of you.
Mr. Pratt, go ahead.
Well, I think all that is based on the grade level. In our system, the majority of our standards were taught up to the testing date, and that's about when we got out of school.
Okay.
Where our problems lied was with the high school age students who were in those core classes that had to finish some of those courses in order to get the credits. I know the state came in and lowered them, but some of those classes were important, and in our part were dual enrollment classes and things like that we have our younger kids that are taking those in order to become juniors and later on seniors and later graduate. So it just didn't impact the group of seniors on their graduation requirements. There are some implications on those younger kids who are trying to build those credits in order to work toward graduation and whatever year they're going to graduate. So the younger kids, you don't know. I mean, there are so many things going on in our communities today that impact our kids' learning besides the COVID. So, we deal with that on a yearly basis. Yes, this did impact it, but our teachers do an outstanding job of not only being a teacher for a student, but they're also psychologists, parents. They aid those kids in their everyday walk in life. So I think our teachers were resourceful and they did an outstanding job, whether it was in person or virtually. I was so proud of our teachers, the way they stepped up and served those kids. And it's not always the academic side that's important for student growth in academics. There's a nurturing side and other things that impact that kid's ability to learn, and being in a safe setting and other things that impact that child. So, I think it could hinder some, but I think if you maintain a relationship with the kids and they have a good support system at home, that you can overcome that.
Okay. Hi, Joey. Welcome back.
Hey, sorry about that.
Okay. So we'll give you the next question. What about that? Did you want to elaborate on that? I'm sorry, Sean. Did you want to say anything?
No, I just wanted to echo what Mr. Pratt said, and I wanted to congratulate our teachers and administrators as well, because they were dealt a really difficult hand. And I think, to Mr. Pratt's point, we had gotten through a majority of the standards because testing starts so early in April and the first part of May, that we don't feel like we missed a tremendous amount of instructional time prior to for new content, but we know that we missed a lot of instructional time, and our goal is to make sure that doesn't happen this year. And so we do have some concerns, having been on block schedule, and some of our students starting a new course in January and having to stop in the middle. What gaps exist there. So we're planning on some work in the fall to try to catch some folks up where they may have missed out. But I do congratulate our teachers and administrators and parents. We had longer lines coming to school to pick up packets of student material for work when COVID closed our schools than we did for food pickup, which I thought was amazing. And I was so proud of our community for making academics a priority.
Okay, that's awesome. So Joey, So I'm thinking about the kids, especially those most at risk. So what levels of support will you guys give those children?
Well, I think as we think about reentry, I think you know we they were just talking about academic, but I think we've got to clearly think about the social emotional learning. I mean, things just basically cease to exist. For us, that Thursday before spring break,
Yeah,
and students lost ball seasons. They lost contact with their friends.
sure.
And while our staff was absolutely amazing doing check ins with Zoom, we had staff that went to houses, and we, as a district, have, continued to feed our students. I think we're really going to have to think about that social emotional learning support,
Mhm.
and really take time just to reconnect and ensure that students are being heard, and our staff as well, just as we transition back in. But specifically, when you think about support, I think we've got to ensure that our counselors have time to see students around that social emotional need.
Mhm.
We've got to also ensure that we're trying to figure out where students are academically and the type of supports they'll need there, and how we
Mhm.
can recapture some time
Mhm.
within the school day. But also, if we want to consider any extended school day or some type
Okay.
of summer program for
Mhm.
2021.
Okay.
I think as we focus on our students, a whole child approach will be more important than ever before. I know our neighbors in Crockett and Lauderdale were like us. The first thing we did after that spring break was ensure that our students had meals if they
Right.
wouldn't receive meals, and so that happened, and then we ramped up our instructional approach and the contacts. But the biggest thing through all of that was just in making sure our students were safe. So we're
Right.
going to just take time when we return just to reconnect and make sure we're really listening to our students and families and our staff to make sure that we think about those supports in a meaningful, purposeful way.
So do you guys think you have to do anything extra to help to boost the morale for your teachers?
Well, I'll touch on that as earlier. I think they have so many duties that go beyond the teacher, the
Right.
academic part.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be really important for the directors to look at uh, providing the teachers with access to things that simplify the virtual teaching, the everyday classroom experience, because we're fixing to ask our teachers too to become custodians, white desk, white door handles,
Mhm.
make sure kids have got the right temperature, when they come in, and do other things that normally they didn't have to do. So I think our support and providing them with tools to help them is going to be important in their morale, just to boost their confidence,
Mhm.
knowing that we're there for them.
Right. Right. Right.
One thing that one thing that I was really excited about, if I could just add quickly,
Mhm.
was we just recently put out a few surveys, and our teachers want to be back. I mean, overall, overwhelmingly, the results of those surveys are our teachers want to be back with our kids, and they want to get back into school. And so I know they some of them have we all have some reservations, but they care enough about our kids that they want to be back, and I think that'll help boost morale as much as anything. It's just been able to make a difference.
Sure. Sure. Okay. Great. Great. Okay. So tell me this: how did the teachers stay in touch with each child? What ways did they use to stay in touch with the children? Joey?
Well, our teachers use multiple resources and opportunities. One, they use their text alerts to remind, or the team reach out for the various things. We also had a number of teachers that did weekly Zoom or multiple times in a week Zoom meetings, and sometimes those were just check-ins. just to make sure students were okay. And
Mhm.
some of our teachers did, you know, various scavenger hunt activities, just really ways to keep kids excited and focused. And then we had teachers, who delivered the lunches to students, to the families having to come. We had teachers who volunteered to deliver lunches and just drove by houses and checked on things. So, and that continues even though the school year's officially over. I know our teachers remain in contact with the students and their parents, just to keep them connected. Like Sean said, we did a survey for our staff and students, and most of our staff, they're ready to get back at it. They know it's going to be different than it was before spring break. But most of our families are wanting to return as well. So it's been important for our teachers to stay in contact with families, just in full transparency, so they're aware of everything that's happening and what we're communicating. And back to that teacher morale question, I think one thing that we can do to help our teachers is to communicate and be transparent. And being transparent also means we don't know everything, and it's going to be uncomfortable for everyone as we have to adjust some of the things we've done historically. So I think we have to communicate honestly and clearly, and just make sure that to PA's point, folks have the support they have, but realize it's just it's going to be different than what we're used to.
So how did you guys stay engaged or connected with the staff? Now, Joy, I remember on Facebook seeing you had a lot of Zoom meetings. Is that what all of you guys did?
Yeah.
More than we wanted. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, what about Zoom? Right. Okay. So that's kind of how you stayed engaged with everyone.
Yeah. We've been meeting regularly. I mean, all of us have. I mean, you're from one Zoom meeting to the next, and I think folks don't understand from the time that school, we were in that spring break, middle of March, and all of this kind of transpired and we closed. It hasn't slowed down. It has been just as fast paced as it ever has been in terms of the workload, and our administrators and supervisors and district employees have been kept up and helped carry the load, obviously. But we stayed in touch with that. One of the things that I think, as far as engaging with the community, and we're trying to work to do a better job with that, but our teachers did some amazing things on social media to stay connected with families, sending messages to kids, reading chapters of books, doing book studies, all kinds of just fantastic things I would have never thought of. They're always teachers are always much more creative than we give them credit for sometimes. But yeah, it was. It's been refreshing to see that we've been able, even though in the face of some difficult times, learn new ways to connect with the community, and that's been refreshing.
Okay. Do you think you missed any child? Do you think you missed any child? Because I think about broadband. Okay. So we're in the rural areas. So did some children, were they kind of disadvantaged because maybe they did not have the internet at home?
Well,
was that an issue?
Yeah, well, I'll address. Last year, beginning the school year, I did a survey asking our parents how many of them had internet service at the house, and we had 37%. The ones that completed the survey said they did not have it. And the number one complaint I had this year through our teacher interactions with kids on their Zoom meetings and everything was that the parents were having to use their data package on their accounts, and that would usually last 30 minutes to an hour, and that was getting very expensive for some parents. So we worked with our local TEC and some of our local internet companies to see what we can do to help them, and put extenders on all of our buildings. And that helps a little bit, but when parents still got to get in the car and go sit in the car to use our internet, that's still an issue. Trying to do homework out in the car at night.
Right.
So it is an issue in a rural area, and that's something we're working real hard to try to resolve with our local people.
Okay. Anyone else? Did anyone else find that to be an issue? people not having the access?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest issues we have in planning for next year, because most of what we tried to do to engage in terms of just keeping students on track and thinking and reading and doing work was through, handmade packets that people could pick up and we could deliver. I mean, we try to do some online, but we know there's some barriers there. So as we try to figure out how to provide more devices and more technology, even maybe devices that could be checked out and used at home,
Right.
there's still that connectivity issue. And so
Oh.
we're going to have to try to innovate and plan around how to still give students access with those devices without necessarily having a broadband connection. And that provides some logistical issues, but those are things that we're considering and trying to think through as we're planning for next year. But it's something that troubles us, that issue and transportation, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Mhm.
But those two issues, the equity in terms of connectivity and transportation, are two of the biggest issues we're struggling with for next year.
Okay. Okay. Alrighty. So listen, in life they say you always need a plan B. So of course we had no idea that we would be faced with a pandemic at this time. So what happens if a student comes down with COVID or a teacher comes down with COVID? Do you have plans or have you thought about that? What will you do? What would that look like? What would happen if that happens?
Let's let Joey answer that.
Joey, he's been kind of quiet. So Joey, can you hear me? I don't know if Joey can hear me.
Well,
Okay.
well, as he's coming back, and Mr. Pratt, you jump in. Those are things that we're sitting down and having very, very detailed conversations about, and we've had, hours and hours of discussion today about several of these procedures. So, what we're trying to do is get the overall plan of what the operation will look like when we get back into school. But not only that, then what is scenario B and C and D, depending on where cases are. And
Okay.
so I think that's one of the things that we're still have yet to completely flesh out. And some of that there will be some consistencies across school, but some of it will be different by nature within each school because of the procedures they have. So our goal is to get through all of that in the next couple of weeks and get as detailed as we can and release that information. Hopefully in the next 10 weeks or 10 days to 2 weeks.
Okay. And I think thinking about the numbers that I've seen, Crockett County has not really had a large percentage of the people with COVID, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe people have not been
We
tested.
were at 17 confirmed cases. I think it was 12 recovered, 4 deaths, and we had still just 1 active at the current time. I think that's right.
Okay. And I think Lauderdale, you guys were maybe had a little more than Haywood County.
Yeah. And I think some of those numbers were reflective with the penitentiary here too. Somewhat. We have, I don't remember I didn't look today, but the exact number of active cases are still relatively low. But I think that's the thing that we're considering as school starts back, being really cautious to start school back, because as we've made this transition with schools being out into the summertime, all of the information that we have on reported cases of COVID have occurred, and all of the tracking without schools in session. So we want to be really careful and cautious as we re-enter school, not to have that big big explosion in new cases because we've done something in an irresponsible way. So that's something obviously that we're taking into consideration. As I mentioned earlier, it's the well-being of our community too, really hinges on the environment we create with students in school.
I see Joy again. Do you think you will have to wear masks? Do you think that you're going to ask the students and teachers to wear masks? Can Joy hear me? I don't think.
Yeah,
Joy...
I can hear you. I think your question was, will we ask students to wear
masks? Yeah, because
masks?
This is
that is in our contingency planning for our students. But I think, it will be, as we get closer to time, we'll see active cases in our community. I don't know that it'll be mandatory, but it's
Okay.
certainly a recommendation that we will look at. I mean, if you're a K2 teacher teaching systematic phonics, mask is going to hinder our ability to work with children,
Sure. Oh, that's right.
in teaching them to read. So those are things we have to think about. But it's certainly in transportation, in moving through in and out of the building with large groups.
Right.
But we will definitely consider to the various purposes there. So.
Okay. All righty. So I don't know if you were on when I asked the question, Joy, about what would happen if a student or teacher at the school has been diagnosed with having the virus. Like, do you have a plan of action of how you would handle that?
Right. So I didn't hear my colleague's response, but it's probably very similar to theirs. Just depending on location and where there's a contingency plan of disinfecting and cleaning the rooms, and then it's actually on our health department to notify families of contacts. So we have to be real careful around that. But there is a contingency plan on what we would do, and I think it's realistic to think we live in the South, and when we have snow days, we're all out. But I think it might be a time where it might just be a school that's closed for a few days for disinfecting. It won't be Haywood County Schools is out. It might just be that Haywood Elementary is closed for a few days. So I think we're at a different place in school closures as well.
Just depends on where it is. Okay. All righty. So now, have all of you had graduation? Have you all already had your graduation?
I have.
You have?
We have. Yeah.
Lauderdale, but Crockett and Haywood, we have not.
No, we've got ours the 19th.
I'll say this: when we got some guidance from the state and from the governor's office and the Department of Education, kind of just some guidance on how we could operate that. We considered pushing into June, but we didn't know what numbers would look like in June, and the numbers of active cases were relatively low in our county. So we went ahead and moved forward with we were delayed just a few days from our normal graduation. We gave a few tickets to each student to limit the number of people that came in to the facility for graduation, and we distanced students on the field. But I want to commend our community because they followed directions.
Okay,
they were orderly. They sat where we put tape down where they should sit, and left and areas open where they shouldn't. They followed that guidance, and we had a great ceremony. And when it was over with, people followed directions and went back to their vehicle and left. And one thing that we did that was really, really positive out of this, and there's no way we can not do this in the future, is we set up a live stream on YouTube Live and publicized that, and so people could sit at home and gather however they chose at the time and watch it. And so just Halls and Ripley graduation, we've had over 5,000 views of those graduation ceremonies that likely people would have never seen had we not done that. So that was exciting for us, and I'm glad to have it behind me. It was a great event. I'm glad it's over. So good luck, guys.
So guys that haven't had it, what challenges are you facing with that? What are your major challenges with the graduation?
Well, it's unknown. We've never done it before, so I don't know what the challenges will be. We follow the same guidelines Mr. Kimball has, and we're looking forward to the ceremony, but it is a ceremony, and we know that our kids are prepared to move into the future. So we're excited for them in their next step of life. But, we've had great community support for years, and I expect nothing less than what we normally get. And that's a great group of people showing up to support the kids.
Okay. And I was going to ask about, how did the community assist in any way when the pandemic hit, schools were out? Did the community step in, and did you guys need the help of the community at all to do anything for you? Or was it basically your staff and faculty that took care of everything? Joey.
I was having trouble hearing you, Andrea. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I was just asking, when everything kind of hit the fan, did the community step in to assist, or did you need the community to step in to assist? And if so, in what way? Okay. Joy,
Yeah.
again.
Well, we had so many people reach out to ask to help in any kind of way and volunteer. Community members, school employees. Early on, we kind of shied away from bringing people in from the community only because we were trying to learn what we were dealing with, and we didn't want to expose people, unnecessarily to COVID. And so we have brought other volunteers on for different things. But again, we had volunteers, employees who were on buses delivering food and doing all those things. So our community is providing great support, and if we needed it, they were there. They were there.
Okay. Okay.
We had the same. I think once we started the feeding program and started supporting the kids, we had several of our local businesses and the food bank locally from the community donate food and household supplies, toilet paper, and things like that that we give our low-income families that needed assistance through our school system anyway. Really proud of how they stepped up, and even our community even stepped up and had a parade on the originally scheduled graduation night. They had a community parade, and I'm going to say in our community there was about 3,000 people that lined the parade route and supported the kids. So I was really proud of our community for doing that. But total support from anybody we asked, or people just donating things to us to help.
Okay, that's awesome. That's good. That's good. So, what type of engagement have the families most needed? Hi, Joy. Welcome back.
Well, thank you. I've slept all day and not had an issue. I don't know what's going on.
So you can answer this one, Joey. Okay. So what types of engagements, can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me. What type of engagements have families needed the most? What do you think?
Well, interestingly, when we started, we had lots of calls about our meal pickup, and just like food, and with some of our families, and we had a lot of calls about that at the office. As we've looked at surveys, also the support, we have families who won't, when we return, a focus on mental health for their children. So that's the type of thing. What I heard from our families frequently is that they appreciated the constant contact from our teachers, or not constant, but frequent contact from our teachers. But initially, for us, the food prep and the meal distribution was very key in our community, and I think it continues to be. So,
yeah, that's awesome. Okay. All righty. Anyone else want to elaborate?
About the same here.
About the same. Okay. So let's talk about transportation, the buses. What can our students expect? Do you think that will
be? When we look at...
Okay. Go ahead, Joe.
Nobody wants to answer this one, I can tell. But when we look at the CDC guidance, the recommendations that we've reviewed are essentially you put one child per seat, and then skip a seat. And so for us, that's 13 students on a bus. So we're like, well, let's look at one child per seat, 26. So, what we're going to do when we're going to do some activities after July 4th to engage our families about transportation, to ask for volunteers and assistance with getting children to school when we roll. But we're also going to have to look at routes and make some adjustments and schedule differently. But bus transportation, from where I sit, and I think PA and Sean would agree, that it may be one of the most challenging things we have to to deal with as we re-enter school in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
We'll ask for help from our parents if we put out the survey that's still available until June 12th, this Friday, for families to fill out or to complete. But in that survey, we asked if transportation wasn't available, could you get your child to and from school? Although we're likely to provide some transportation or provide transportation, we want to encourage, if families can transport their students to school and pick them up, we would prefer them to do that so that we can reserve the buses for the students who need it the most. But it is the most difficult and challenging piece of this. Just looking at the number of students that ride some of our buses on some of our routes, the logistics for this, if we have to run multiple routes, would be really difficult to do, and to be able to get students to school on a timely manner and still have the staff to drive the buses. So we're working through that. We'll have some more guidance again in the coming weeks before school starts back. But we do want to encourage our families who can provide transportation for their children to go ahead and please do that. And that'll be part of our communication.
Okay. All right. So we know that COVID is a major challenge. Do you have any other major challenges that you guys are facing right now for your schools? Any other major challenges besides COVID?
Well, I think it's the excess cost that we're looking at having to come through with transportation, or even cleaning supplies, or just the unknowns of. I mean, if we're going to do a part-time in the building, part-time virtual, how do we compensate those teachers that are doing more work in their extra time? So all those unknowns that we're still playing with now, I think the cost is going to be a major concern for all of us.
Okay.
Equitable funding. We still maintain that rural school districts, which is a majority of us across the state, more than 80 of us that are considered in the small schools equity group, that in each district's context is a little different, but we're one of the distressed counties in Tennessee, and we face many challenges, and we always feel like that we're in planning for being innovative, that sometimes we're throttled back because of what we see not to be an equitable BEP formula to fund rural schools.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Joey, you want to say anything? No? Okay. All righty. So listen, let me ask you this. So we know that currently the legislature, they have been discussing their budget. Now, what are your expectations from the state or the federal level? Are you expecting the state and the federal level to come through for you guys? Joey?
Well, what we've heard thus far is that the BEP, our BEP, will be funded, fully funded, which is good to know. But to PA's point, just funding the BEP will not help us with any excess costs. Now, we have CARES Act money that we're all working through, but when we think about the lift to have virtual opportunities with these rolling closures that everyone's talking about, should we have an uptick in the virus in the fall or winter months, we're going to have to be able to switch quickly and pivot and do things. And so the cost of all of those things will be above and beyond what we normally budget with our state and federal dollars. So we do have the CARES Act dollars, but I just feel like long term, that's a Band-Aid. It's not a long-term solution, and these are one-time funds. So, if you buy technology to have for one child, you've got to repair those, you've got to replace those. These are children, and this is technology. So I think there are lots of factors we have to think about there. So.
Sure. Okay, well, we're getting ready to wrap up. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our parents and our listeners this evening? that you would like for them to know that we did not cover here this evening? I'll give each one of you a moment to say something once we're wrapping up. Joe, you want to start off? Joey?
Yeah, I think I'll be glad to. And first, I want to apologize for the tech issues I've had, but because they've been bad. But
It's okay.
what I'd like to say is we, over the next few weeks, will be communicating much like Lauderdale, like Sean said, and just providing plans. We've already shared many updates. We made a shift in our structure to reopen Sunny Hill. We've made some administrative placements this week, so we'll continue to push that information out to our families. We are preparing to start in August. It will look different, but we are planning to start in August, and we'll be sharing all those details, and we'll have things parents need to do for us during the month of July. Most importantly, I want to say school districts are not obsolete. We have fed children, we have provided instruction to children, and we have ensured that our students are taken care of. And anyone's welcome to come and shadow any of us, I'm sure, on this call tonight to see that our teachers and our staffs are very much working toward our community and, most importantly, the children we serve. So just stay tuned and look forward to all the releases we'll be doing on social media and through our press and radio and everything. And thank you for asking us to join this evening.
Oh, I'm glad. Anyone else?
Just the same thing Joey was talking about. We're working on it's an ongoing plan, and we're planning the same thing start in August. But just a reminder of patience and understandings, because day by day, week by week, things change. And as soon as we get them worked out, we will provide our parents and our students with information to move forward for opening in August one way, or, either way we go through either scenario, we will be in school.
Okay.
And I think, we're all experiencing these unprecedented times together. No one, I can promise you, no one wants to start the school year, like we normally would. But as Mr. Hassel mentioned, there's going to be some changes. We just ask our community to remain patient with us and continue to support our schools, and I know they will, because there are times that we're all going to be frustrated, and things are going to change probably pretty quickly, depending on how the fall and winter months go. So we just ask that you continue to work with us and know that we're trying to do everything we can to provide an education and try to keep our students and employees safe. So it's a pretty big task, and we certainly don't take that lightly. But again, I do want to thank our community members and our employees and everyone who supports our school district, because just the last few months have been difficult, but it's been great because everyone has worked so well together. So.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. Well, listen, you guys have been great. I want to thank each of you for coming on and sharing this wonderful information with us today. This has been very informative. And I want to thank all of our Facebook listeners for tuning in, and those that are on YouTube. And to my directors of schools, may all of your dreams and aspirations that you have for your schools one day be a reality. Thank you guys so very much. This is Andrea Bond Johnson, and I am a candidate for state representative for House District 82. And we wish you all well, and please stay safe, and good night.